couldn't stop crying on the field after the game. The last 2 minutes of the first quarter, and just tackled Isaac Heaney, and his shoulder just flushed me here. And it was a pretty big collision. It just felt like my bottom teeth were just smashed. And I went to change direction really quick, and it just felt like my whole bottom set of teeth were just swinging side to side. You're finally getting going, and now this happened. So it was a little bit unlucky, and I felt like that was probably my best game of AFL.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the PD Performance Podcast. I am here with Darragh Joyce of the Brisbane Lions and former Kilkenny hurler as well. We talked about a fantastic year for him, being part of the Premiership winning side out here, and he's about to jump on a flight back to Ireland as well. So we talked about things in Australia, we talked about things back home in Ireland, and about his development out here in Australia over the last 7-8 years. So hopefully you enjoy it, and now on to the podcast. Darragh, welcome to the PD Performance Podcast.
Thanks for having me.
It's good to have you on. Good to be in Brisbane, although the weather is slightly disappointing.
Yeah, it's bucketing down outside, but I'm still in my shorts. You're covered up.
I know. Well, I was on the bus. You probably drove here.
I did.
Yeah. But I've been travelling around the city, and it's a shame I've missed the celebrations, but I'm sure there was a lot of celebrations. How's the last couple of weeks been?
Yeah, it's been pretty hectic. It's probably taken a toll on the body that I didn't think it would, but it's been awesome. Yeah, it's like what dreams are made of, to win it and then bring the trophy back to Brisbane and celebrate with your fans up here. So yeah, it's been crazy.
You went the whole way, but you went the hardest route possible.
Yeah, that's what happens when you don't make top four, and probably a lot of people didn't think we were going to make it there around round 12, 13. But yeah, we just kind of found our groove, and I think we won 9 out of the last 11 or 12 the back end of the year, which put us in good stead. But we were hoping to get top four, and there was a stage there where we thought we could get top two, which was unimaginable, but got in 5th and then found our way in the final. So yeah.
Back at home, they talk about not peaking too early in the league or early championship. Even though you went the hardest route possible, because you were building result after result, did you feel that you were almost more battle-hardened going into the final?
Yeah, I reckon so, because so we got to the final last year as well, lost by 4 points, and so what are we now, a week after the final? Clubs are already back into their pre-season programme, their individual programme, nearly 3 weeks already. I follow a few mates that are at different clubs on Instagram and whatnot, and they're putting up stuff that they're training hard already. We're in our 2-week break off now. So that was us last year as well. So we did a little delay start to pre-season. We still obviously started at the same time. So I think last year we started December 6th. But our individual programs were all tailored that we have a longer break, and we're slowly building into it. So that would obviously have an effect on the start of the season, hence our slow start of the season. But it's just like a cutthroat competition, the way the teams are. So I think this is the most even season there has been to date. So yeah, it was quite a slow start, but in-house, in our four walls, we probably always thought that, yeah, we'll get going here now. Doubt probably did creep in at some stage when we just weren't able to click into a gear, but once we got winning at the Gabba especially, we knew we'd claw a few wins away from home. And because it was just so bizarre, because we hadn't lost at the Gabba, well, I'm only here 2 years, but they hadn't lost at the Gabba in 3 or 4 years or something like that. So it was a pretty big stat. But to have a few losses early at the Gabba where the crowd, you want to get the crowd behind you at your home games and stuff. So that was a bit of a shock. But yeah, I put it down to the slow start to pre-season and just slowly build into it. But you want to be playing your best footy come September. So that's when we kind of did.
Typical Kilkenny man. Peak at the right time, find a way to get through the fixtures. People might write you off, but you're thereabouts. But I'm joking, tongue-in-cheek, but what was interesting to me was in the playoffs, preliminary finals, etc., there was never more than a goal or two in those games. There was no easy games that you had. Yeah,
it was tit for tat there for a lot of it. The Giants to come back from 43 points down, Geelong, who it was raining at the MCG for part of the game. They bet us at the Gabba earlier in the season when it was raining. I'm not sure what the deficit was there stage, but to come back and they kicked kind of a sealer, and then we came back and kicked 2 right near the end. It was heart in your mouth kind of stuff.
When you're riding that wave of momentum and you're used to winning, it becomes kind of a habit, and even when you're behind, you still have the belief that you're going to go and win this game. Is that what it felt like?
Yeah. The Giants game probably did feel like there was probably a few doubts setting in. It was Jesus, a long ways back here. And we just weren't playing well. We just couldn't get going at all. And we still didn't really play that well, but we just managed to scrape through, and like the resilience the boys showed was incredible. Geelong was a closer game, and because we had done it the previous week, we knew we had it in the arsenal to do it again, and then we just ended up playing 4 quarters in the final, so that was pleasing.
Talk to me about the final, because from outside, people were saying the Swans were humming and ready to go, but I have quite a few friends that live in Sydney and are Swans fans, and they weren't that confident going in. Unfortunately for them, they've been in a number of finals in the last decade, and they've won, but they've come up short a few times. The first quarter, the first few minutes of the first quarter, I was thinking, watching it, this is going to be a really tight game, tit for tat again. And then it just seemed like tactically you were able to find pockets of space and then convert more chances than them. Did the game plan just go completely to plan? Is it one of those instances where it happens?
The start, especially the start of a grand final, it's always going to be nervous, and everyone is just keen to get a touch of the footy and like get themselves into the game. So the first 10 or 15 minutes or so, it was tit for tat, but it was our most complete 4-quarter performance of the year by far. But game plan and tactics don't really change that much. So like we played Sydney earlier in the season, and like we only bet them by a point at the Gabba, and that was like a ferocious game. But like tactics week to week change slightly. Like you might see a weakness in them that you want to exploit around stoppage, or you know, we might counteract what they're doing, or what one of their really good players goes up into stoppage and tries to do. So it's minor tactics, but like you're just literally trying to, you've embedded a game plan all year and you're trying to put that on display on the weekend. So it was just a complete 4-quarter performance, and the boys were just hard and tough for 4 quarters. And like even like in the last quarter when it was like sewing up in the last 15 minutes, boys were still going at it, which is just incredible. So very, very pleasing to watch.
It must be nice as a group though to save that for the final, for that complete performance.
We weren't saving it.
Well, I know, but for it to happen in the final, because it mightn't always happen in the final.
Yeah. Looking on anyway, like it's nice to have a game that you can actually, like half time you're looking at the scoreboard and you're like, do we have this? But like you'd never want to like preempt anything. I've noticed like if that's a hurling game at home or something like that, like the game is over. But the game of footy, like the score can change so quickly. Like you think 40 points, but it's not that long when a goal is 6 points, and a team gets momentum, and like all you got to do, like a goal can be scored so quickly. You get it out of centre square, one kick and set shot, and it's a goal. So yeah, not a lot it all has to go right just to keep going.
Like you touched on there, you're looking on and observing the game. You didn't get on in the final, but how is it looking on when the team is humming like that?
Oh, it was a much easier watch than the Giants and Geelong game. So I was in the stats box watching those because I was emergency for all those games, and I'm a much better player than I am spectator. Like I get so nervous spectating, so it's a lot easier being out there and being in the thick of it. But yeah, it was just nice to be able to sit back and kind of watch the boys, you know, everything that they've worked for all year come to fruition. So yeah, it was just a nice, easier watch than it was, especially the second half, than it was the Giants and Geelong game.
When you're watching on and it is a tighter encounter, do you think those nerves come because obviously you want to be out there affecting it, but you can't affect it?
Yeah, you've got no control. Yeah, you got no control over anything.
But do you see things that potentially you feel might be being missed by the lads on the field because you have that bird's eye view in the stand?
Yeah, 100%. And like coaches forget that they've played the game as well. Like when you're in the stats, like you're up so high and you get it's like chess. It's like a chessboard, and you get to see everything, and you're like, why isn't he doing this? But like coaches very quickly forget that they played once, and like it's a hard game when you're out there under fatigue and you're trying to, like, it's just constant decision making. There's no time to relax because the way the game squeezes up and defenses squeezes up, like you're always literally a kick and a half away from the footy, so your positioning can impact what happens up the field, especially me as a defender. So you should be coming off the field with a headache from all the decision making that you're doing. But yeah, it's so easy to watch on and just think, oh, I would have done that better. But put yourself out there under fatigue, especially, it's a lot tougher out there.
It sounds like your tactical understanding of the game and your appreciation for positioning and just being a footballer as opposed to an athlete may have come on quite a bit in the last 8 years of being out here.
Yeah, I would think so. When I first came down and like looking before I got drafted or anything like that and looking at the game, I just thought it was just chaos, like organised chaos, like kicking a catch and just be a competitive beast and you'll get on the game. But then when you sit down and like you learn the tactics and position wise and starting positions and stuff, first couple of years you just got to be a sponge and take it all in, because there's a lot going on that the average Joe sitting in the stand would not understand. And like, you know, like different fifth rolling up the stoppage and stuff and how you're going to counteract that and stuff like that. So there's a lot of tactics goes on. And like I said, that we embed a game plan early in the preseason and you just try and stick to that, and we back ourselves in. We're a good team and we're just going to stick to our way. We're not going to worry about the opposition too much unless they have got like a star player that's going to get off the chain or whatnot. Yeah, I do have an appreciation for the tactics now, and especially when I go back to the VFL and I'm like an older player in the VFL now. Like I still think I'm a young player, like I'm 27, but in football terms I'm probably getting on a little bit. But you try and be an on-field coach, and if you can coach on field, that means you're just embedding in the game plan in your head, and then you go on the big stage in the MCG or whatnot, and then like you know it because you've coached someone else through this. So I try and do that as much as possible, just especially like you draft 18-year-old kids and they're coming in to play alongside you in the VFL especially, and in the AFL. Like look at Will Ashcroft, like he's 19, Norseman medalist now, he knows everything. But like you've got kids like that coming through, and like no doubt that Lockie Neal is telling him where to set up a stoppage and stuff. So I try and do that in my back six as defenders and stuff like that. So yeah, you got to know what the tactics are going out.
I've spoken about it before on the podcast, and it's something that perplexes me a little bit, is the lack of comms and interaction between players on a hurling or football field. It sounds like there's quite a bit of communication going on for you out in the footy field in terms of organising your back six, as you said. Do you think we underutilise that in Gaelic games a little bit? Or is it just because it's such a high intensity game, it's hard to speak?
It's hard to say. I've always been a talker, and it's lucky because if you don't talk out here, you got to be a really good player to not be able to talk. It's hard to say, because I went back a few years ago and played hurling for my club and stuff, and I'm continuously talking. But that's club hurling, and you can kind of hear to the other end of the field without massive crowds being there. But like talking is so valuable, and you got to be able to talk to the person beside you, because if your defender is not in the right spot, he's putting you at jeopardy because you're playing in a certain position. And like we play a kind of an aggressive enough defensive structure, and we kind of be really assertive and play in front. So if you don't have the guy behind you backing you up, you're kind of in two minds then whether to play assertive or not. So it's a lot of trust in the system. But at home, yeah, I'm not sure at home, just because AFL is such a game of 360, like, and you've just got to. So when I'm a kick away from the stoppage, like I said, like I've got to be doing my job for the guy behind me to do his job. I'm not sure in hurling and in Gaelic football I only played club hurling like 2 years ago, and I've been out of the game for a while now, like 8 or 9 years. I think it could be 9 years since I played like Kilkenny Senior Club Championship. So, and hurling has changed a lot since then.
Did you find a change when you went back?
Yeah, even at club level, like it's just gone short now, short passing stuff. Whether when I was playing, it was just always like goalkeeper would puck it long straight to the half forward line, and I'm usually somewhere around there, so underneath the high ball. But yeah, it has changed an awful lot, and like it's just so quick now and fast. I always have thoughts about going home and hurling for Kilkenny, but I have to put in some groundwork to get to know the run of the game again, because I was playing for my club and I started off my first game in midfield and I was running around like a headless chicken. I was running footy patterns, like running around for a handball receive, and lads are just pucking it 80 yards down the field. So yeah, it would take a little bit to ingrain back into the hurling roots.
How difficult was it for you to adapt to a new role coming out here to play footy as opposed to the role that you would have had playing hurling at home? Because playing hurling at home, obviously you touched on, you were playing midfield, like you were probably more of a key link player between attack and defence and performing both roles evenly, let's say. Over here, it sounds like you have a very defined role that you have to do, and it's not really that important what you're doing outside of that.
Yeah, this is kind of funny because it kind of clicked for me in my second year, I think. Because I was always kind of, like the ball was kind of always played through me at club level and stuff, because I was a pretty handy player, and like kind of one of the better players, and you're always kind of on the ball. And now disposals or anything like that wasn't recorded at home or anything like that, but you felt like you're always had your hands on the ball and making decisions. I couldn't grasp the game down here in my first year. My first year I was awful. Like, I was a key defender. Now I was 85 kilos wringing wet at that stage coming down. I put on like 10 kilos straight away in my first year, and I was just trying to adapt. I couldn't use my body. Like hurling, you don't really like use your body in a contest. Like, you, if you're athletic enough, go up and catch it, because you can't really like shove someone underneath it, or else it's free.
Depends who's reffing.
It does depend who's reffing, yeah. And how far the ref is away.
Yeah.
But yeah, just like learning different nuances with your body and stuff, and how to shift your opponent. But like, I couldn't do that, and I couldn't get my hands on the footy. So I was coming off in like VFL games, like getting 3 and 2 disposals, and I'm like, oh, what's going on here? Like, I just can't get it. And every time I'd walk past a flight centre, I'm looking at flights home to Dublin. I'm like, how much are they costing? But so the role of a key defender, like, it's not about your disposals or anything like that. Now, if you can get involved in offense, and as Brisbane, it is everyone's part of offense. So like, you got to be trusted with ball in hand, and you got to get moving. But like, as a key defender, your main priority is to shut down the key forward, and more than likely or not, you're going to be playing on the best key forward, and the other team are going to be aiming at him 9 times out of 10. And in my second year down in St Kilda, I was playing the Sandringham Zebras VFL team, and I'm not a massive NFL fan, but like, I had NFL on the TV, and I was just like looking at it, and I was like looking at the, I'm not sure where to go, linebackers or whatnot, the big lads that just push. It's like a scrum in rugby.
Yeah, offensive or defensive line.
Yeah, and I was looking at them, and I'm like, geez, they're getting paid for that.
A lot.
They're not like, obviously like their craft is very important, and I'm sure they take it very seriously, but like, they don't have any impact on the ball. They have impact on the ball, but like, they're not getting their ball in hand or anything like that. And I'm like looking at it, I was like, that's their role, and they're performing that. And I remember just thinking like, oh, shit, like, I'm in a professional sport here, like, my role is just to do. So that kind of clicked with me then, and I kind of became like a lockdown defender then. In the VFL for Sandringham, my coach at the time would give me like the best forward, and it didn't really matter how many disposals I had. I would just lock him down, and I'm a competitive fecker, but I would just lock him down, and like, if I had to just bash him all game, I'd bash him all game, and that worked for me. And then I ended up getting my debut off that first in Kilda, and then that kind of, it just clicked with me then, and then my game kind of grew off that. But that was like a real like light switch moment for me, that look, this is my role, and I just got to do this. Like, I'm not the most important link in the chain. Like, that's the midfielders' jobs. That's why they're getting paid the big bucks, and the forwards and all that. Like, I don't have to touch the ball 25 times a game to have a good game.
The determinant of your performance is not how much football you play, but how little football the guy that you're on plays.
Exactly. You summed that up very well.
That is mental, really, isn't it? Because like, as you said, when you were hurling, you were trying to be a hurler, like not a fancy Dan, but like a complete player.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're getting on the ball in the attack with the Lions, great. But if your guy is scoring goals to beat the band, you're not playing next week.
I could come off with 20 disposals and my guy kicked 5, and I'm like, that's a shit game.
Yeah.
Like, and I could have done everything right with the ball, but my guy still kicked 5. So it's like, it was a hit to my ego. Like, in my second or third year, I was like, okay, like, I'm not the big dog down here. Like, I'm the bottom rung of the ladder, and you got to build your way up. And like, at home and hurling and stuff, I was free taker and all that. So like, it was a hit. It was a hit to the ego. But then, geez, you're playing professional sport. You do what you got to do, and
to give you more appreciation for cornerbacks.
It does. Yeah, it does. Absolutely.
Because they have a role to perform as well, and their role is stopping lads playing hurling, I suppose.
Yeah, yeah. Now at Kilkenny, we had some good corner,
taste.
like Jackie Tyrlin. That he liked the limelight, and he would go through a guy just to get a little.
Yeah, but if you're going to play for Kilkenny, you have to be able to hurl as well.
You do,
because of the style of game that Kilkenny play.
Exactly.
Whereas I suppose at club level, there definitely are players that just get by on stopping other lads playing. Like.
Yeah.
So you mentioned then the first couple of years in St Kilda, and from chatting to Ray Connellan and Barry O'Connor, the first couple of years coming out are obviously crucial, but everybody that comes out, and Connor Nash said the same thing, those are the hardest years really, are they? Sink or swim.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're obviously that bit younger as well. Like, you're coming out, I was 18 coming out, first time living away from home. Like, I'd gone to college in UCD for a year and learned how to defend for myself and cook and all that, so I kind of had some grasp on life. But yeah, it's a big move coming at that age and packing up your whole life and coming into an environment that's totally new. And I was lucky to come down with Ray, and we formed a great relationship together. And he was so good because Ray was like a couple of years older than me. I think Ray was like 21 at that point and a few years wiser. So he was terrific for me, and I wouldn't have lasted down here without him. And then like a couple of really good mentors at St Kilda. Danny Frawley was one of those to me. He passed away a few years back. Only for him as well, I would have gone. Cause it's
Gone back?
Yeah, I would have, yeah. Because like when homesick hits, it's like not a nice feeling at all. And then you're down here solely for football. Like it's not as if you're hurling home and then you go to school or college or whatever and you've got your other life. Like you're down here for football. You're getting paid for football. If you have a bad game or something like that, it's
10 times.
Yeah, it is. It's tenfold. And I had trouble like early days. I was like, geez, I have a bad football game here now. Like, and I just kind of found myself thinking I was a bad person.
Yeah.
And didn't want to leave the house or anything like that. And I was like, it's just not right. And like still I struggle. And I've heard Zach Toohey said the same thing. Like he struggled with that kind of thing as well. That you have a bad game and you don't want to go down to the local cafe in case someone recognises you or something like that. Now, when I was in my first couple of years, no one was going to recognise me anyway. But you just have this thing that you might be a little bit sheepish then coming into the club and going into your review meeting because you've had a bad game. And yeah, it's just like a correlation that you think you're a bad person, but it's so far from that. Like I have so much respect for the guys that come into the club, and now like big names. Like I remember Bradley Hill at St Kilda. I love Bradley, like terrific fella, and like he was so good because he was getting slated in the media in 1 year because obviously he was on a big contract or whatnot coming across him. But like he just came into the club with a massive smile on his face every day, regardless of what was being said, regardless of how he played on the weekend. Like, and I just found that infectious. I was like, how good is that? Like, he doesn't care what's going on outside, or he probably does, but like he's still put on a smile and have a laugh and a joke, and it doesn't change his personality coming into the club. So I tried to take that on board. Now still, if you have a stinker, it's still going to affect you, but you can't let that affect your personality coming into the club. Harris Andrews is very good at it at Brisbane Lions as well. He obviously I haven't seen him really play a bad game since he came up here, but like compares to his standards, if he has a slip off or a drop off in his game, it doesn't matter. He's captain of the club, so he's got to come in with a persona anyway, but he just comes in with the same smile, the same energy, enthusiasm to go attack the week. So it's infectious.
Do you think it's something they do a little bit better over here, in that what you're talking about there is you had attached almost your whole identity to who you are as an athlete? I think there might be something to it at home that because Gaelic games are such a massive part of the community, you may have done that because you were playing good hurling, and the first thing that anybody would ask if you were around town or whatever was, Jesus, great win the weekend, or how's the hurling going? But over here, it seems they're better at being a little bit more balanced with their lives. Like they have other interests, whereas, as you said, and I've had people say that on the podcast as well, for whatever reason, at home, if you play a bad game, sometimes you don't feel like leaving the house because, oh Jesus, somebody will notice you, or I should be focusing on the next game. But you can't focus on the next game for 7 days of the week, 24 hours. Like.
Yeah, and we're lucky over here probably that games roll on every week, so you have another opportunity to right some wrongs the following week. But at home, then you could be waiting, especially inter-county. I know it's changed now, the schedule, but you could be waiting 2 or 3 weeks for the next game. Well, I just think that's an Irish mentality thing as well, like tall poppy syndrome. Like they'll just try and I don't know. Yeah, they do, and it is a bit more balanced over here. But yeah, I went home and played like club hurling at home, but didn't have one. They probably thought I was going to come back and, professional athlete. Yeah. And like I've never felt pressure like it, like coming back and playing for your club and to think you're going to lord it. But like, yeah, I remember I had a bad game in the semi-final and we lost, and
you were told,
overheard, my ears were red going down to the local pub. So, but yeah, you're well used to that. But that's just an Irish kind of mentality.
But do you think you've developed more then as a person coming out here than potentially you may have at home if you just continued hurling?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And to any like young guy thinking about coming down, do it. Like it's incredible experience, and the relationships you make and how much you learn about yourself as a person and how much you grow in different areas of life that you wouldn't think of, and the networking you can kind of do. Like it's just...
It seems when you come out as well now, And it seems maybe from when you came out first that you had good peers, or maybe not, I don't want to say mentors, but older people looking after you. And then there are younger Irish athletes coming out here now. So do you kind of take a little bit of responsibility for them? Like the likes of James, who's now made the decision to go back to Ireland. You're living with Connor. Like, do you look out for each other because you know what it's like?
I'm not living with Connor anymore. I lived with him for 3 weeks, but he thinks there's a big thing going on there. No. When I first moved up, it was so funny. So like, sorry, I'll get back to that question. But when I was coming up, I was like, because I was a SSP pickup, and anyway, it all happened so quickly. I got a phone call on the Monday saying that, you might be going here or here. And on the Wednesday, I chose Brisbane, and I rang Connor. I don't know why I didn't ring him on the Wednesday, but I rang him on the Thursday saying, here, I'm coming up to Brisbane there, you got a place for me. So he got the keys to his place on the Friday, put his bed in on the Saturday, and then picked me up from the airport on the Sunday. It was his first time living with his girlfriend ever, and I just jumped
Crashed.
in. So a big
You, me and Dupree
26-year-old baby moving in with him. But so yeah, I lived with him for 3 weeks, but he still goes on a bit about it. So if you're watching it, Connor, it's all.
But that would indicate him picking you up the next day.
Yeah,
he did look out for you.
Yeah, it's incredible. And he and Kieran Byrne, when me and Ray first came down to St Kilda, they were terrific for us. And that's the thing. There was a good gang of us down there in Melbourne at the time, but they kind of took us under their wing because they were down there. I think Connor might have been there 2 years, and Kieran Byrne, the same, 2 years each when we arrived. But it was so nice just to hear an accent, go for a pint, have a chat, hear about their experiences. Now them two are pretty successful. Obviously Connor's very successful, but Kieran struggled with his injuries and stuff. But it was nice to hear that perspective as well. And yeah, those two taking us under our wing was terrific, and we're such close mates from that. And then it's just ironic then that I end up here with Connor as well.
And do you try and do the same thing then with any younger Irish athletes that come out here too?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's hard when we're up here because there was the three of us up here, so we're moving. And majority of the clubs are in Melbourne, but Conor Nash is still he's the father figure down there in Melbourne now, so he'd be looking after all the young lads. But there's so many guys coming down now, it's actually hard to keep up with it, because since COVID, the doorways have opened up now again, and there's been a steady stream of young lads coming down. So I think Carlton have 2 and St Kilda have 1, and it's obviously hard to touch base because you kind of fly in, fly out for games and stuff, but you have them over Instagram and whatnot, and I'd be following all their stats on the apps and stuff to see how they're getting on. But yeah, you do feel a little bit far removed up here, but I think Nashy's looking after all the young lads down there.
I was just thinking today, because I was listening to you on a podcast, listening to Connor and listening to Orla as well, and I met Niamh yesterday. Now Niamh hasn't been here as long as you, but you haven't lost any bit of the accent whatsoever. No. But I heard last week that Colin O'Riordan potentially has got a bit of a Ty Kennelly twang coming in. I don't know how true that is, but why is it? Is it because you tend to call home a lot, or you talk to each other quite a bit?
I don't know, it must be an Eastern Beaches thing in Sydney, because Colin's after buying a house up there now and he's hanging around with Tig too much. Tig's got a funny twang. Tig has got a strange twang. He can click into Aussie and Kerry so quickly. Yeah, I ran into Colin at an airport there a while back, and I was thinking the same thing. I was like, you've changed a little bit. I'm not sure. I tried not to lose it in a way. I tried hard not to lose it. Now when I first came down, I got sick and tired of saying everything twice and 3 times to everyone, because they'd be like, what? God help, I don't know how they understood Connor, because sometimes I still have to look at Connor's lips to figure out what he's saying. And his family were down here for the grand final and stuff. I was same thing. Yeah, I don't know, I tried not to lose it. However, I don't know how I tried to do that, but I was on the physio table one day and Mum rang me and I was just talking to her real quickly, and then the physio was like, oh my God, you just changed so quickly there. But you actually have to slow down a little bit talking to the Aussies. But I have a few little phrases creep in, but try to. I don't mind going home.
You'll be right.
I don't mind going home sounding a little bit Aussie and then come back here sounding a bit Irish. It's a little bit different.
But you're obviously, all of you miss home quite a bit, because obviously the final was a couple of weeks ago, but as you said, Connor's already gone and you're going tomorrow. So it is very important for you that you get home for as long as you possibly can. And I know Conor Nash, I think, is gone as well now. Yeah,
there's a group of us. Mark Keane is home from Adelaide. Keane McBride, who was my old housemate, he was at Essendon, so he's home full time now, but catch up with all them lads and do a bit of a road trip and stuff, and go see a bit of the place. But yeah, it's funny when sport is just crazy, like up until 18, and you're in school the whole time and you're playing for so many different teams, so you don't really get the chance to do anything, or because your world revolves around hurling and football. But like you said, you're a bit older now as well, and we've got 2 months off. Like we get 2 weeks off, no training, but like we'll have an individual program then. From next week it starts, so I'll be at home running in the wind and the rain again around the Ornsteig, the A field.
Nice. They'll think you're coming back to Ireland. Sure. Well, they'll probably be asking you, are you? Do you find that because you've lived your adult life out here, do you find you think about things slightly differently to your friends that have lived their adult lives at home?
Yeah, you would. Yeah, absolutely. Like we're going home for one of my good mates' wedding now, and like he hasn't really left the roar. Like he's just like been working on the farm, and he's such a hard worker. But I'm like, would you ever like just come down here and explore a bit, or go see like farming in New Zealand or something like that? But some guys just absolutely love it, and like our home birds. And my brother was the same, Connor. He was a home bird up until he went to Dubai and went teaching, and now he's been to more countries than I can even think of. But yeah, you do probably think of it a little bit differently. It's just like Australia is such a good country to come to because it's so similar but yet so different. I couldn't imagine going to Dubai and living just the lifestyle and everything. It's lovely to visit and stuff, but when you come to Australia, it's just very similar, but just the lifestyle, outdoors, exercise, golf. Like it's just incredible. The sun is shining, especially in Brisbane, apart from today, since you've arrived. But you do probably think of things a little bit differently to them at home.
Do you find you're far more independent because of those first couple of years where it was tough out here and you did have doubts about whether you'd make it in the AFL?
Yep.
And you obviously, probably being a Kilkenny man, still have a desire that you'd like to wear black and amber. So there are probably times when it gets tough and you think, geez, I could just go home.
Yeah, and we're probably lucky that we kind of have that, the base at home that you can go back to, like that little safety net, so you can kind of throw everything you have at it over here, and you always have that safety net. But yeah, like in my first couple of years, when I said I was like looking at price of flights and stuff, I was serious when I said looking at price of flights, but I'd never allowed myself to do it. Like I had a 2-year contract at the stage, and I said I was always going to see it out regardless of what, because it was just an opportunity that you can't pass up, and you'd only regret it if you went home. And then from there, then it slowly started to click for me. But yeah, the longer you stay down here, the more you kind of fall in love with the place.
You feel at home now in Australia?
Yeah, I would say that. Mum and Dad would hate me to say that, but no, I would. Like I still, in my head, I kind of see footy out, and then I'd envision going home for a year or two, putting on the black and amber, hopefully, and then seeing how things weigh up. Like I just don't know if I could deal with the lack of sunshine at home.
Yeah,
I'd put up with it for a year or two, but yeah, I love Brisbane. And since I came up here, I just fell in love with it. So, but yeah, that's kind of in the plan to go home for a year or two and see when my body is still in all right nick, and then see what happens.
As you said, you have your safety net at home, and you have your family, and you have people you can rely on. But when shit hits the fan over here, you have a bad game or you get a bad injury at the wrong time, like this year. How have you tried to get a release, I suppose, from football when that's happened?
Yeah, you just try and keep it, like injuries are part of the process, so when they come around, like it's shit when it happens, but you just deal with it, and you get, like, you've got so much support staff at the club to look after you, and the physios and doctors and that are amazing. And then you lean on like Connor and James, and just to go for a game of golf and have a chat with them, and we have a little kind of family.
Can you play golf with a broken jaw?
I had a week off and then I got back out there. The worst thing with the broken jaw was just not being able to chew. Like, I could play a game of footy, but I couldn't chew for 6 weeks because I missed 2 weeks because we decided against surgery, just because it would take too long, and I'd get back out there quicker, and I had my little helmet with my chin piece on it. So yeah, I could play a game of footy, but I couldn't chew for 6 weeks, so that kind of doesn't make any sense.
Soup.
A lot of soup and smoothies, but yeah, like we have that little kind of family sports system, and that was like the great thing about coming to Brisbane, because I knew, because Connor had just got here and James was already here, so like, not as if the Irish always stick together, but it's just nice to have that little, people that you can lean on and talk about similar things, like the GA back home, or the Dubs not making the All-Ireland football, and Limerick not winning, so it's great.
But that's what Jen said as well about coming out and having Orla here. It's like there's more of a connection almost. Like you don't have to you don't need to use that Irish Australian voice to get them to understand you, and you can use the slang and you can talk about things that they can relate to. Maybe there's more relatedness or something. So it's not normal for you to connect more with the Irish players than...
No, exactly. And James was already here, so James has been here like for 5 years, so like then he's kind of a link between you and the other boys then as well. And it's like at the end of the day, like you're coming up and you're probably going to take one of their spots or trying to take one of their spots. So James was that kind of great link as well between the Irish and the Aussies, and blending me and Connor into the group. And like such a close-knit bunch, the Brizzy boys. And like I love my golf, like I've mentioned it a few times already, but there's like 25, 26 players there at Brisbane, and you're never short of anyone to play a game with. So yeah, they're a great bunch of lads.
But you touched on there, you are coming in to try and take one of their spots. Was it frustrating, the timing of the injury this year? Because it seemed like you were starting to get a few selections and there was an opportunity there because there was so many injuries in the defence that it came when it came. Yeah,
because I didn't see myself realistically. I was waiting for an injury because the boys were going so well. So I was just kind of staying ready for an injury and then taking the opportunity when it came. And I got in for a week, I think, against Melbourne, and then came back out. Jack Payne came back in because he just had soreness and stuff, and then after that then he pulled up sore again, so he was going to be out for 6 weeks. So I kind of knew I had a run at it then. So I'm not sure actually how many games, my memory is after leaving me now, but I think we might have played 3 in a row, and we played against Sydney and
last minute?
No, first quarter.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, like I think it was like the last 2 minutes of the first quarter, and just tackled Isaac Heaney, and his shoulder just flushed me here, and it was a pretty big collision, but I had like a stinger in my shoulder after the tackle, and I was like, oh shit. And I was trying to get off because I was due to come off on the interchange bench anyway for a spell, but I had a stinger in my shoulder. I was like, that is not getting going at all. I was trying to warm that up, and next thing I could feel my mouth, and I saw like blood come out, and I was like, oh shit. And then at half time, or like quarter time, took my mouth guard out, and I could, like, all the blood came out. I was like, oh, I better put that back in. And then I asked one of the trainers, I just smiled at her. I was like, are my teeth okay? Because I just felt like my bottom teeth were just smashed. And she said, yeah. And that was fine. So I put the mouth guard in and didn't say anything to the doc. I went out in the second quarter and went to change direction really quick. And it just felt like my whole like bottom set of teeth were just like swinging side to side. I was like, oh, that is not a nice feeling. So I literally played the rest of the game just gritting my teeth like that. Gritting the teeth. But after the game then, and that was like the 1 point win against Sydney, so it was a really tight game, and I felt like that was probably my best game of AFL to date. Like I was just so involved. I had like 4 or 5 intercept marks. And
were you on Heaney?
No, I was playing on one of the tall forwards, like kind of chopping and changing on Mardy and McLean. But yeah, I just saw out that game. We won by a point, and then I left my mouth guard in until we got back in the rooms, and went to the doc, and I thought it was my teeth, and my mum would kill me if I did anything to my teeth. And she's like, when I was playing Gaelic football at home, she was always checking that I had my mouth guard in. I never used to wear a mouth guard at home. Never. I used to hate them. But down here, you just kind of... I remember talking to one of the defenders at St Kilda. He's like, wear a mouth guard, because when you're a key defender in a contest, the amount of times that your head just gets knocked against the guy's head in front of you, and he had a few chipped teeth, so I was like, okay, I'll wear my mouth guard. So luckily I had it in, but it was just here, just flushed me here. And I went home. So I was getting scans the next day, went home, and like I didn't really know what was going on. So I was like trying to chew, and I just could not chew at all. And it was like, so the break was here, but I was like trying to chew on this side of the mouth, and that was even sore. I was like, what is going on? So anyway, broke the jaw, and then just kind of had 2 weeks off and back into the side again. But that kind of did kill my momentum a bit, because I came in on Monday, and Fags was actually the first person to see me. He's like, what's going on? Like, you're finally getting going, and now this happened. So it was a little bit unlucky, but eventually came back in 2 weeks later with the headgear on, and played, I'm not sure, 2 or 3 games. And then we kind of had a break before finals, and Big Jack Payne came back in. Now, he was like unlucky last year because he missed the finals through injury, and he played the whole season. He played pretty much all of this season as well, so he kind of had more runs on the board. And like, obviously you're disappointed to lose out your spot to him, but you kind of have one evening or maybe a couple of evenings of sucking at home and having a sulk, but then you just got to prepare them as best you can. And be as good as teammate as you can to get them ready for a big game.
Is that how you reframe it? Because that's obviously a new feeling for you, winning something and not being able to partake or play a role on the starting team.
Yeah, like you do. And I've been dropped a few times over my career. I've seen a few players be dropped and then like make it all about themselves. And I said I'd never be that person. Now, like, guys feel like they have to show that they're disappointed. Everyone knows you're disappointed. Like, it sucks. Like, watching on Grand Final sucks, but you're so happy for everyone. Like, I was crying after the Grand Final because I was just literally so happy for everyone. And like the Darcy Ford story and all that, like I couldn't stop crying on the field after the game, even though I didn't play. But you could just go home and like you remove yourself for that night and you have a suck at home and whatever you want to do, give out. But after that, you just got to snap out of it and come in the next day with a smile on your face and get them guys ready, because they need you as well. They need you to prepare, and you're doing your extra craft sessions after training, because it's so strange, because like you do everything as a backs group, as a line group, and yet you're all fighting for kind of the same 6 spots or 7 spots. So the backs are always like, I find the backs are always the closest group in amongst the team anyway. Like, you're such a close-knit group, and then, you know, to be told that, oh, you're out, he's coming back in. It's a weird dynamic. And it takes a while to get used to, but you have to be a good person about it and put on a brave face and get them ready as best you can.
But how do you strike the balance in training of pushing them hard to prepare them and not stepping over the line where they might turn around and say, fucking hell, mate, don't fucking injure me before the weekend?
Yeah, I know.
Is that hard?
It is hard. It is. Yeah, it is. But
because you're trying to put all your energy into preparing them, but as a result of doing that, it's likely that you're going to be playing quite aggressively in training.
Yeah. It's a difficult one. But if I'm playing aggressively, at least I know I'm getting them ready for what's coming on the weekend. It was so funny because I obviously did my jaw and I hadn't had any, so I had 2 weeks off. I was training away, doing non-contact stuff and getting running again. And then I had my headgear on, and when it came to like the last contact session to see if I was ready to play, all the boys were lining up to have a crack at me. So we put out like 4 cones and we call it the cage work for the backs and the forwards. So we all just go head to head in that like cage. So a high ball is kicked up and all the boys were lining up to have a go at me that day just to get me ready. But like, yeah, Fags hates that drill as well because he's like over there looking in the corner. He's like, oh, just get through injury free. But yeah, the boys are all lining up to have a crack at me.
But you've got to go hard to get anything out of that drill.
Yeah, exactly. And if you go half-arsed at it, you're going to get injured.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the same like when we were underage hurling. If you don't get in or you'll get a slap.
Shoulder,
yeah, exactly. You'll get a slap. So, but it is a balance. Like you there is ways to cross the line, but like you just don't do it because it's just a bad look. Yeah, you just got to be the best team that you can to get them ready, like I said. Yeah.
So what we haven't touched on yet really at all is what most people that'll tune in probably want to hear about is the week after. Because I had said to you off air that I had said to Connor that I was thinking about messaging you, and he had said definitely message the 2 boys. This is Connor and Ash now.
Yeah. I
said, geez, they're not going to be looking at their phones for the next.
Yeah.
This was on Monday. I was talking to him. He said leave them Tuesday afternoon. They should be looking at their phones. I was like, if I won a Premiership, there's no chance of it. So is it as hectic as everybody thinks it's going to be?
Yeah, it's a pretty big week now. Saturday night after the game, we stayed in Melbourne, and it was incredible because we were all out on the ground for so long as well. And like when the stadium had cleared out, you're out there for like 2 hours or so. The rooms are amazing, and like family and friends, and like that's the close knit group. It's like everyone's immediate family and friends. Then we had a function later on with fans and stuff, so everyone kind of gets a little bit disjointed, and you kind of got to do a few appearances and go see a few people as part of the club stuff. But yeah, it was a pretty big week, and then you come back Sunday and bring the trophy down to Springfield into the club, and had like a signing session and stuff there, and like I think I had like 20 minutes sleep Saturday night, and we had to get on a bus Sunday morning to go to Fitzroy in Melbourne before we flew out to back here to Brisbane. And then it just kind of mad Monday then rolls in, so that's another full day of drinking and stuff. Fun, yeah.
But you've got to, I said it in the message, like you have to just switch off and appreciate those times, because you don't know how many of them you're going to get.
No, exactly, yeah. You got to make the absolute most of it. And we certainly did that. And then we finished it off on Thursday night with the best and fairest, and then kind of lads had trips abroad booked. So like Connor went home to Ireland, and I kind of got up to Sunshine Coast to get some sun. I was lucky enough there was sunshine here before you got here. So yeah, I managed to get a bit of health back in the body, and now this week now just slowly getting moving again, and yeah, looking forward to getting home and celebrating at home.
You said earlier that you would like to get back and play for Kilkenny. Winning a flag over here and going through that, do you ever think like, geez, it'd be great to win something back home, either with the club or the county, and experience this feeling with the lads that I've grown up with?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like I think every sports person talks about like winning is so special. Like it's the 10 minutes out on the field with the people that you've won with is like the most special thing ever. And just to have that feeling and to look around the MCG, like there was still a lot of people there. And it just, when all the Sydney fans had left and it was just Brisbane, like there are a lot of Brisbane fans turned up. So that was just a surreal moment. And I kind of like had a little flashback to like, I think it was like 10 years ago now since I won minor with Kilkenny, and we had that feeling in Croke Park, and you just look around at all the Kilkenny fans and stuff, and yeah, you do kind of think about wanting to go back and do it, especially with your club. Winning with your club is like the best thing ever. Like we won minor, and then the club went on to win Intermediate All-Ireland, which is like the most special week in the club ever. It's different over here because it's your job, and it's so special winning because you've got so many close connections over here. But you do think back and like how special it would be to do with people that you grew up with and where you grew up from. Yeah.
Are we privileged in Ireland that we have that we can experience it with the people that we've grown up with, because that's the nature of the game? You don't play with anyone else, you play with your parish, your club, your county.
Yeah, privilege. Some people are privileged, some people aren't, because some people are from a bad club and never get to experience it. But yeah, we were lucky enough to have a little bit of success when I was still playing at home. But then you look at clubs like Ballyhale, who experience it every year at club level.
Well, not this year. Not
this year, but they have over the last 10, 15 years, how many times. But like that must be just so special. They must be bored of it now.
I don't know. Not the fellas that I know that are from there anyway.
But it was a kind of a surreal moment. I had a little flashback on the MCG. I was like thinking back, I kind of like pictured Croke Park here again. And I remember watching, that was a few years ago now, watching an All-Ireland where Kilkenny got bet by Limerick, and I was like, geez, I'd love to be back there now. And you know, I'd been a spectator again, like we talked about earlier. You just feel useless. Like you just wish that you could actually be out there and doing something. So there's definitely a bit of that involved.
Okay, so let me ask you this then, outside the box question. Do you think we've made a mistake in Ireland moving the minor final to a separate date and a separate venue?
Yes, massively. That was the most special thing growing up. Like every minor wanted to play in Croke Park ahead of the seniors.
What did it feel like for you on that field?
A personal level, like, because I was the captain and we were lucky enough to win, but then my brother was playing in the senior game after. So like on a personal family level, that's that's the highlight of my career still, like to this day. It was so special, and the seniors drew, and then we had won, so it was kind of all about us as well in a selfish way. But yeah, like I don't know why they've done that. Like it's just silly. And young guys, like under 18s, like everyone's kind of playing up to under 18s, but then they go to college and like guys go separate ways, and you know, life hits everyone.
And you don't stay connected with those people.
No, you don't. It is impossible. But I don't know why they've done that. Like every young kid wants to play. Like I was lucky enough when I was younger, I got to play like at half time of a senior game, a Leinster game at half time, and I was like, oh my god, like look at the size of this place, like it's incredible. And then I was lucky enough to do it again at minor, played there numerous times. But it's just a bizarre decision to do that, and why not?
And it's unique to us as well, so we probably should look at keeping it back in. But Charlotte Burns is here, so maybe you need to give him a ring.
Come on in there.
Yeah. Last question before we go on to quickfire ones, because Barry was quite outspoken when he came on the Backdoor Cut about his stance on amateurism versus professionalism, and not that he thinks players should be paid playing GAA, but they should be compensated or given benefits in kind for their commitment to progressing Irish culture and playing our national games. Where do you stand on it now? Because I heard you speak in the past and say, leave our games alone, they're fine. I don't want any sort of professionalism. Amateurism is where it's at.
Yeah, it is difficult because when you're down here, you have such an appreciation of what like guys do. And I saw my brother Kieran at home, like the amount of training he did and then have to go work a job, or like back then he was in uni and stuff. Like, it's actually incredible what guys do and like where they get the energy from, because I'm lucky enough I can go train, come home, have a nap, recover, and like, yeah, we probably train the same amount. Like, obviously it's different, tailored.
And Brian Cody isn't shouting at you either.
Taylor different, and Brian Cody's not shouting either. But yeah, I just don't know how it would work. So like over here, because of what, there's 26 million in Australia. I'm not sure how many, like let's say 15 million watch AFL footy on the weekend. Like half our wages are paid by the media, so 50%. So like at home, what, population 5 million, 5.5 million. Like, I'm not sure how many of those are going to watch hurling football. Where's the broadcast deal going to come from? I would love it if players were paid back home. I'd be the first one to go back home and play hurling. But I just can't fathom how it would be done. I really wish it could be done, because the commitment guys show, and like, it's just like, you get an injury and you working on the side or something like that, like you're stuffed. So I'm all for Barry ideas, and if he wants to go forward, I'll give him the backing. But no, like, I would love to see it done and see guys be compensated. And
there's a little thing called GA Go now. I don't know if you heard about it. And potentially people might stop complaining about it if it actually went towards some sort of benefit for the players, not directly to them, but paying for, even, as you said, compensation if they are to miss work, or paying for surgeries or something like that. Don't think anybody would argue with that. No, not at all. And like, obviously, like, the big players are kind of looked after, like with car sponsorships and stuff like that. Anything that players can get at home, they deserve it, because what they do, and like the show and the spectacle that they put on. I'm biased, especially hurlers, because hurling is just the best game to watch ever. The spectacle that they put on in Croke Park is just incredible. So anything that them players can get, they deserve every single bit of it. Well, that kind of ties in nicely into what I'm going to ask you next. These are the quickfire questions. They don't have to be quickfire answers. I'm going to actually restructure them slightly and ask you now, because you've said hurling is the greatest sport on earth. Who is your favourite athlete of all time?
I saw this question earlier. I've got a few different athletes from a few different sports. All time, I love watching Rory McIlroy. I'm a real keen golfer, and he probably cops a little bit for not getting over the line in recent tournaments and stuff, but to show up and the amount of like top 10 finishes he's had over his career, like, I'm sure his pockets are pretty full, but to show up there and like be competitive the whole time. And I just think the mental side of golf is incredible. Like, I get nervous hitting off a tee box in front of a group of 4 or 6 lads. Yeah, I love watching Rory McIlroy, and I watch him every chance I get. I'd have a few different, like Johnny Sexton, rugby. I used to love Sonny Bill Williams, the ex-New Zealand rugby player, boxer, rugby league player. Yeah, I've got a few different sports, yeah.
Niamh McLaughlin actually said Rory McIlroy yesterday as well, which is interesting. Proudest achievement to date? That's
a difficult one, because like being part of the grand final, and it was just incredible, and like playing the back end of the year, so like feeling like you've really contributed to that, and like getting boys ready to see him do that on the weekend or last weekend was just an incredible experience, and to enjoy the celebrations with him. It would probably be the minor All-Ireland, or no, I'll even go back further than that. It'd be probably the minor club, to like win it with your school friends and to bring the trophy back to your club. And then just winning with your club is probably the most special thing that you can do. So that's a long time ago now, so yeah.
What's the biggest thing you've learned in the last 12 months?
Probably that I'm a resilient bugger. The ability to keep going and to show up to the club and be a good person the whole time. Like, it's, people like look at it and say that, oh, you're getting paid, you're a professional athlete and all that, but like, it's still tough to show up every day, and like, you know, in pre-season they're running the laps in 35-degree heat. It's just killer. But yeah, just resilient, like with injury and stuff, to get back and to play with a broken jaw and stuff, to be out of the side then, but like I said earlier, to be a good person and like help your teammates as best as you possibly can, put your own ego aside, and to do that, yeah, I'm pretty resilient fella, and I've probably learned that a little bit more about myself this year.
What a year to learn it. What would you tell your 18-year-old self?
Yeah, jump on the flight to Australia. I absolutely have no regrets. I remember me and Ray Connellan at the AFL draft combine thing in Melbourne. We were kind of like picturing, I think one of the questions was like, what's a good AFL career to you? And we kind of said, I don't know, maybe like 10 years. So like next year is my 9th season. So that's pretty surreal. I probably pictured a few more games and something like that. But to be out here 8 seasons now, to be part of what we were couple of weeks ago, going into my 9th season. Yeah, jump on the plane and get over here.
The Irish experiment lives on.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully there's a few more years left in you yet, Darragh, but thanks a million for coming on. It's been a great chat.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.